Salutations, prospective viewers. I'm George from Ireland, and I'm in the Museum of the Order of St. John in London, housed in St. John's Gateway, which is one of the old entrances to the City of London. So the City of London was a walled city into the early modern times, had several gates known as Newgate, Ludgate, Bishopsgate, obviously St. John's Gate, Cripplegate, a couple of others I forget. So anyway, the Order of St. John dates back to about 1080. It was a hospital in Jerusalem originally, and it was in Christian hands at Jerusalem at the time. Then Muslims conquered it, and Christians decided they'd have it back when Christian pilgrimage was impeded. So the Knights of St. John were founded, often called the Hospitallers, as in of a hospital. Hospital didn't simply mean a place for medical care at the time. Hospital could mean something like just any charitable foundation. So they were involved in fighting to try to take back Jerusalem for Christendom. Sometimes successful, eventually not. Muslims won in the long run, but they had various principles. The Knights of St. John, which were faith, care, and valor. So they weren't just a military order, there was that aspect, but also providing medical care and providing charity for those in need. And eventually they set themselves up on the island of Rhodes. They were a Catholic Christian organization, not an Orthodox Christian one. Remember, what's now Turkey was then part of Greece, and there were Orthodox Christians there. The Byzantine Empire existed until 1453. So the Greek island of Rhodes was inhabited by Knights Hospitaller, and they're all from Western Europe, Catholics of various nationalities going there, and they were allowed to marry. So there for centuries. Eventually, the Ottoman Turks defeated the Greeks, and Rhodes was about to fall. So the Knights of St. John, they left Rhodes and they moved to the island of Malta, and so they ruled Malta for centuries. And this is their sort of ceremonial garb. You see that Maltese cross on his chest. You can't see one of it, the left-hand branch of the cross. See an ancient canon here. So there were many Western European countries, including here in England, and this gateway was their headquarters. And look, one of the battles. So you can see their flag looks like the Danish flag, though it's not. There are people from Germany, from Scandinavian countries, France, Italy, Spain, blah, 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 all going to Malta, serving in the sovereign Order of Malta, military Order of Malta, and then there was the Grand Master of the order, and he ruled Malta. So the Maltese people are Catholics, well, certainly were Catholics, virtually without exception. And that's why if you go to Valletta, the capital of Malta, you'll see places called Poste de France, Poste wherever, as in this is the post where knights from whichever European country were based. And so then the Ottomans in, I think it's 1565, decided they would crush the Knights of Malta and seize Malta, which was impeding their control of the Mediterranean. It was a siege of several months. The Knights of Malta would outnumber 3-1. However, they prevailed. The Ottomans were obliged to lift the siege and sail away. It had caused severe damage to the Knights of Malta. Had the Turks attacked the next year, they probably would have prevailed. So here you can see some nuns who were also helping out. You see a good example of the cross at their Malta. See the head of St. John, because remember, St. John the Baptist had his head chopped off on the orders of Herod just to please his stepdaughter, Salome. Okay, so what else can I tell you about the Knights of Malta? So they were here doing charitable work. Then came the Reformation, and Henry VIII, he seized the land because it was a Roman Catholic order. They were not monks as such, they were known as fra, as in for frater, brother. And he just simply used the land for himself in this area. Clerkenwell was just on the edge of London, so there was open countryside just to the north. And he used it for various purposes, to store weapons and to store hunting equipment when he went riding into the countryside to hunt deer and so forth. And then in the reign of his daughter, Mary Tudor, the order was briefly restored. Then his other daughter, Elizabeth I, became queen, and she shut it down once again, and she laicized this place. So it was used for various purposes down the centuries. Anyway, in the early 19th century, some people here in this country decided that the order ought to be restarted. I skipped over a bit, actually. Then Napoleon, he invaded Malta in 1798. Now, the French, about 95% Catholic, but at that time, the French government was having a row with the Catholic Church. They'd even imprisoned the Pope. So there's a lot of doublethink going on there. Yes, I'm a Catholic, but I'm against the Pope. Happened in Catholic countries a lot. But anyway, so the French seized Malta. The Knights of Malta really declined as a military force over the centuries, and the French very easily defeated them and so ordered them out of Malta. So it was this sovereign military order, but without a territory to rule, and they're still called the Sovereign Military Order of Malta. They still have some sort of diplomatic representation, even though there's no land that they control, because they were the Maltese government for centuries. But anyway, so about 1831, some people here said, let's refound the Sovereign Order of Malta. And so they did, and eventually that got the imprimatur of Her Britannic Majesty, Queen Victoria. You see across there, it is a religious organization after all. And eventually they were able to get this place back. So there's no military aspect anymore, and they're really just a charitable organization, but they are particularly what would you call it, particularly a medical one, so running ambulances. St. John's Ambulance, you see them at any public event, at concerts, at football matches, at firework displays, and they train in first aid, and they try and help reduce road accidents. So they're here to care, they're here to reduce suffering for people, to donate to those who are in necessitous circumstances. And that's that. You can join it as a part-time thing. Very few people work for them full-time, and here's the Good Samaritan, and they take counsel from his fine example, and they worship. I'm not sure if you have to be a Roman Catholic to be in it. I would guess a lot of the ambulance men and ambulance women are not. And they did lots of sterling work in various wars, the First World War and so on. You can see this stretcher on wheels. Well, what would you call it? They call it a litter. Litter doesn't just mean rubbish that you throw away. Litter means something that you carry people on. So that's that. The religious aspect of it has declined. So not many of them are knights of St. John. I think to be a knight, you have to actually be a Catholic, and ideally a practicing one. But a lot of people are just...
1898, Emperor Napoleon invaded. Well,
it's free to come into this museum. It's open daily. And there are parts of it, the chapel and the crypt, that you can't see on an ordinary tour. You can go on a particular scheduled tour, but that is also free. You request a donation of £5. So here's the Duke of Gloucester, the Queen's cousin, and he is a prime mover in this organisation, though I don't think he's a Catholic. So that's that. So they own a lot of splendid objets d'art, as you can see behind me. So we'll pass these times. I mean, perhaps it wasn't opened a few years ago. And they issue medals, obviously not for military campaigns anymore, but for humanitarian service. So that is that. Anything else I should say about the Sovereign Order of St. John? I'm not sure. So do come here and learn about what they've done to alleviate suffering all around the world over many centuries. Certainly since 1798, as I say, they've not borne arms as such, but they have provided medical aid to people in various conflict zones all around the world. So both men and women. So some of them are paramedics. There are a few nurses and doctors who work for them full time, and teenagers can get first aid training from the Sovereign Order of St. John. There we are. I don't think it's pronounced St. John in this particular case. All right, so I shall turn it off now.